November 1943, Kummersdorf weapons testing ground, 40 kilometers south of Berlin. German weapons engineer Oberingenieur Friedrich Müller stands in the cold morning air, staring at the rifle in his hands. An American M1 Garand, serial number 3,241,892, captured 3 weeks earlier near Salerno, Italy, pulled from the hands of a dead sergeant from the 1st Infantry Division. Müller has tested hundreds of rifles in his career. British Lee Enfields, Soviet Mosin Nagants, captured Polish Mausers. He knows what a good infantry rifle looks like. He knows how it should feel, how it should balance, how the bolt should cycle. But this is different. This is not just a rifle. This is a question. A question the German High Command desperately needs answered. Why are American infantry units, man for man, outgunning German soldiers armed with the Kar-98K, the finest bolt-action rifle ever made? Müller loads an 8-round unblocked clip into the Garand. The clip slides down into the internal magazine with a solid click. He raises the rifle to his shoulder, aims at the target 100 meters downrange. A simple, human silhouette, standard Wehrmacht training target. He squeezes the trigger. The rifle bucks. The gas system cycles. The bolt flies back, ejects the spent cartridge, chambers a new round, all in less than a second. He fires again, and again, and again. 8 shots in 12 seconds. Everyone hits center mass. Müller lowers the rifle. Behind him, Major Hans-Werner Schmidt of the Heereswaffenamt, the Army Weapons Office, is holding a stopwatch. Schmidt writes something in his field notebook. Then he looks up. "Müller," he says quietly, "do it again. But this time, I want you to reload and continue. 50 rounds. I want to see how long it takes." If you're enjoying this deep dive into the story, hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments from where in the world you are watching from today. Müller nods. He places 6 more on-block clips on the wooden table beside him. He raises the Garand again, fires 8 rounds. The empty clip ejects with that distinctive metallic ping. He grabs a fresh clip, loads it, continues firing. 8 more rounds. Reload. 8 more. The rhythm is simple, mechanical, brutally efficient. Load. Fire 8 times. Reload. Load. Fire 8 times. Reload. After 3 minutes and 40 seconds, he has fired 50 rounds. Müller sets the rifle down. His shoulder aches slightly from the recoil, but not badly. The Garand's gas-operated system absorbs much of the punishment. He looks at Schmidt. The major's face is pale. "Now," Schmidt says, "do the same thing with a Kar-98K." Müller picks up the standard German infantry rifle lying on the table. Mauser Karabiner, 98 Kurz, 5-round internal magazine, bolt action, 7.92 by 57 mm Mauser cartridge, the rifle that carried the Kaiser's armies through the First World War. The rifle that was supposed to be good enough for this war too. He loads a stripper clip of 5 rounds, aims, fires, works the bolt, ejects the spent casing, chambers a new round, aims, fires, works the bolt, again. After 5 rounds, he must reload. He grabs another stripper clip, presses the rounds down into the magazine, releases the bolt, aims, fires, bolt, fire, bolt, fire. After 11 minutes and 20 seconds, he has fired 50 rounds. Schmidt writes the numbers down. He does not speak for a long moment. Then he says something that will haunt Müller for the rest of his life. "With the American rifle, you fired 50 rounds in 3 minutes and 40 seconds. With our rifle, it took 11 minutes and 20 seconds. That means 1 American rifleman can deliver the same firepower as 3 German riflemen. 3-1, Müller. We are fighting with a 3-1 disadvantage. Today, we will tell the story of how one seemingly simple advantage, the rate of fire, decided the outcome of infantry battles, more often than tactics, more often than training, more often than courage. The year 1943 became a turning point for German small arms development. On every front, from the frozen wastes of Russia to the mountains of Italy, from the hedgerows of Normandy to the forests of the Ardennes, German soldiers were running into the same brutal reality. They were being outgunned, not by machine guns, not by artillery, by ordinary American infantrymen with rifles. In the first 6 months of 1943, Wehrmacht intelligence collected after-action reports from across every active theater: Tunisia, Sicily, the Eastern Front, where Lend-Lease M1 Garands were beginning to appear in Soviet hands. The pattern was undeniable. In close-range engagements, under 200 meters, German infantry units were suffering casualties at rates 25 to 30% higher than expected. Fire superiority, the ability to put more bullets downrange faster than the enemy, was shifting decisively to the Americans. And it was not because American soldiers were better shots, it was because they could shoot faster. But there is a detail German military leadership had not yet fully grasped. It is not just about the mechanical rate of fire. It is about what happens in the mind of a soldier when he realizes he's being outgunned. It is about the psychology of suppression, of fear, of knowing that while you are working your bolt, cycling your rifle, the man in the foxhole across from you has already fired 3 more rounds. In this video, we will figure out how a semi-automatic rifle changed infantry tactics, why German attempts to counter it arrived too late, and how a single design decision, gas-operated semi-automatic action, gave the United States Army an advantage that no amount of German discipline or training could overcome. Kummersdorf Weapons Testing Ground, November the 19th, 43. Friedrich Müller is sitting in a cold office, writing his preliminary report. On his desk are 2 rifles, the M1 Garand and the Kar 98K. Outside, the temperature is dropping below freezing. Inside, Müller's hands are shaking slightly, not from the cold, but from what he now understands. He writes, the American M1 rifle represents a fundamental shift in infantry weapons philosophy, where the Kar 98K emphasizes accuracy and range through a robust bolt-action mechanism. The M1 prioritizes sustained rate of fire through semi-automatic operation. He pauses, crosses out the word prioritizes, writes instead achieves. He continues, in practical combat conditions, a trained soldier armed with the M1 Garand can fire 40 to 50 aimed shots per minute. A soldier armed with the Kar 98K can fire approximately 15 aimed shots per minute. This represents a firepower advantage of approximately 3 to 1. Müller stops writing. He thinks back to the range this morning. The sound of the Garand, the sharp crack of each shot, the metallic clang of the operating rod, the ping of the empty clip ejecting. And then the Kar 98K, the deliberate, slower rhythm. Aim, fire, work the bolt, eject, chamber, aim, fire. Good for snipers, good for long-range precision. But in a close firefight, in a trench, in a ruined building, in the chaos of an assault, it is simply too slow. He picks up his pen again. Recommendation, he writes. Immediate acceleration of semi-automatic rifle development. The Gewehr 41 program must be expedited. Alternative designs should be considered. If production capacity does not allow mass distribution of semi-automatic rifles, tactical doctrine must be revised to account for American firepower superiority. He underlines that last sentence twice. Then he signs the report. Date, November 23rd, 1943. He seals it in an envelope addressed to Major Schmidt at Heereswaffenamt headquarters in Berlin. He knows what will happen. The report will go up the chain. It will reach the desk of General der Infanterie Friedrich Müller, Chief of Army Armaments. It will be read, it will be filed, and production priorities will remain unchanged. Germany is already struggling to produce enough tanks, enough aircraft, enough ammunition. Retooling rifle factories is simply not possible. But Müller also knows something else. This war is not going to be won with the Kar 98K, not against an enemy who can fire 3 times as fast. The American experiment, 1936 to 1941. To understand why the M1 Garand gave such a decisive advantage, one must go back to the beginning, back to the philosophy behind it. In 1919, after the end of the First World War, the United States Army conducted an extensive review of infantry weapons. The conclusion was simple. Bolt-action rifles, while accurate and reliable, were too slow for modern warfare. Machine guns were devastating, but required crews, were heavy, were not portable for individual soldiers. What the army needed was something in between. A rifle that could fire as fast as a soldier, could pull the trigger, but still be man-portable, still use full-power rifle cartridges, still be reliable enough for frontline infantry use. In 1924, a young Canadian-American firearms designer named John Cantius Garand went to work at Springfield Armory in Massachusetts. His task was to develop a semi-automatic rifle. Not automatic, not a machine gun, semi-automatic. One shot per trigger pull. No need to manually cycle a bolt. The rifle would do it automatically, using the energy from the fired cartridge. The challenge was enormous. Previous attempts at semi-automatic rifles had failed. They were too heavy, too complex, too prone to jamming. European armies had experimented with designs, but found them impractical for mass issue. Garand spent 12 years refining his design: the gas-operated, rotating bolt system, the on-block clip-feeding system, the internal 8-round magazine, the 30-06 Springfield cartridge, the same round used in the bolt-action M1903 Springfield. By 1936, the rifle was ready. The United States Army officially adopted the M1 Garand as its standard infantry rifle. It was the first semi-automatic rifle to be issued as a standard weapon to an entire army, not to specialists, not to elite units, to every rifleman. Production began slowly. Springfield Armory, Winchester Repeating Arms Company. By 1941, when the United States entered World War II, approximately 600,000 M1 Garands had been produced. By 1943, production had ramped up to 4,000 rifles per day. By the end of the war, more than 5.4 million M1 Garands would be manufactured. The Germans, meanwhile, were still issuing the Kar 98K, a superb rifle, accurate out to 800 meters, reliable in the worst conditions, but fundamentally, it was a rifle designed for the tactics of 1914. Aimed fire, volley fire, individual marksmanship. It was not designed for the kind of war that was actually being fought. Close range, fast-moving, brutal. November 1943, Tunisia. The battle for Hill, 609. Obergefreiter Klaus Becker, 21st Panzer Division, is crouched in a shallow foxhole, gripping his Kar 98K. Around him, the sounds of battle, artillery in the distance, machine gun fire from the ridge above, and something else, something that makes his blood run cold, the distinctive sound of American rifle fire. Not the slow, deliberate crack of bolt-action rifles, but a rapid, almost continuous hammering. Crack, 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 and then a pause, and then it starts again. Becker raises his head slightly, peers over the edge of his foxhole. 100 meters away, American soldiers are advancing in short rushes. Fire and movement, one group shoots while another moves, and they are shooting fast, so fast it sounds like machine gun fire. Becker aims at one American, fires, works the bolt. The American has already dropped behind cover. Becker scans for another target, fires, works the bolt, ejects the spent casing. The fifth round, he's empty. He reaches for a stripper clip, fumbles slightly, his hands shaking from adrenaline, presses the rounds down into the magazine. Looks up. 3 Americans are rushing his position. Becker fires. 1 goes down. He works the bolt. Fires again. Misses. Works the bolt. The Americans are firing as they move. Becker feels something punch into his left shoulder. Pain. Hot, searing pain. He drops the rifle. He tries to reach for it, but his left arm will not respond. He looks down. Blood. Dark blood soaking through his tunic. The Americans are on him now. 1 kicks the Kar 98K away. Another is shouting in English. Becker does not understand the words, but he understands the situation. He is wounded. He is captured. The fight is over. Later, In the American field hospital, a medic will bandage his shoulder. The bullet went clean through, missing the bone. He will survive, and he will be interviewed by American intelligence officers. They will ask him questions about his unit, his training, his experience in combat, and they will ask him about the rifles. The American captain conducting the interview speaks passable German. He asks, "What did you think of our weapons?" Becker is silent for a moment. Then he says, "Your rifles. They shoot too fast. We could not keep up." The captain writes something in his notebook. He asks, "Did your commanders tell you about the M1 Garand?" Becker shakes his head. "No. We were told the Americans were poorly trained, that they relied on numbers and firepower instead of skill, that our Kar 98K was more accurate." The captain almost smiles. He says it is more accurate. But in a firefight, accuracy matters less than volume. Your rifle can fire 15 aimed shots per minute. Ours can fire 50. You do the math. Becker does the math. And he realizes something. Germany is losing, not just because of tanks or airplanes or logistics. Germany is losing because the individual German soldier, no matter how well trained, no matter how disciplined, is outgunned. The German response, 1941 to 1943. The problem was not unknown to German military leadership. As early as 1941, reports from the Eastern Front highlighted the same issue. Soviet troops, armed with SVT-40 semi-automatic rifles, were inflicting disproportionate casualties in close combat. The SVT-40 was not a particularly good rifle. It was heavy, prone to jamming in cold weather, difficult to maintain. But it was semi-automatic, and that gave Soviet soldiers a firepower advantage. In response, Germany accelerated development of the Gewehr 41. Two designs, the G41M from Mauser, the G41W from Walther. Both were semi-automatic, both used gas-operated systems, both chambered the standard 7.92 by 57mm Mauser cartridge. The problem was, neither design was good enough. The Gewehr 41M used a complex gas system that required careful maintenance. It jammed frequently. It was heavy, over 5 kilograms. Soldiers hated it. The Gewehr 41W was better, but still problematic. The gas trap system at the muzzle was prone to fouling. The 10-round magazine could not be reloaded with stripper clips. The rifle had to be completely unloaded before inserting a fresh magazine. Total production of both G41 models, approximately 145,000 rifles. Compared to the 14.6 million Kar 98K rifles produced during the war, this was a drop in the ocean. Most German soldiers never saw a G41, and those who did often preferred to stick with their trusty Kar 98K. At least it worked. In 1942, Walther engineers studied captured Soviet SVT-40 rifles. They realized the Soviet design, while crude, had one major advantage: a simple, short-stroke gas piston system, direct, reliable, easy to manufacture. Walther took the best elements of the G41W design and combined them with the SVT-40's gas system. The result was the Gewehr 43, introduced in October 1943, lighter than the G41W, more reliable, 10-round detachable magazine that could be loaded either with the magazine itself or with stripper clips while still in the rifle. The Gewehr 43 was a good rifle. Some German soldiers called it excellent. But by the time it entered production, Germany's industrial capacity was already overstretched. Allied strategic bombing was hitting arms factories. Raw materials were in short supply. Between October 1943 and May 1945, approximately 402,713 G43 rifles were produced. By comparison, in the same period, the United States produced over 3 million M1 Garands. The production ratio was stark. For every one German semi-automatic rifle, the Americans were producing about 7.5. If you extend the comparison across the entire war, the ratio becomes even more brutal. Roughly 50 M1 Garands for every one German semi-automatic rifle. Numbers don't lie. And in a war of industrial attrition, numbers matter more than quality. December 1943, outside Ortona, Italy, Feldwebel Ernst Hartmann, 1st Parachute Division, is leading a squad through the rubble of what used to be a residential neighborhood. The Canadians have taken most of the town. His orders are to hold the southern edge, to delay the Allied advance as long as possible. Hartmann's squad is equipped with a mix of weapons. 3 soldiers have Kar 98K rifles. 1 has an MP-40 submachine gun. 1 has an MG-42 machine gun. And Hartmann himself has been issued one of the new Gewehr 43 rifles. It is the first time he has fired it in combat. He crouches behind a shattered wall, scanning the street ahead. Movement, 200 meters. Canadians, moving building to building. He raises the G-43, flips off the safety, aims at the lead figure. Fires. The rifle kicks, but not badly. The gas system cycles the bolt. He keeps his aim steady, fires again. The figure drops. Hartmann shifts aim, fires at another target, misses, fires again. Hit. Within 10 seconds, he has fired 7 shots. The Canadians scatter, taking cover. He ducks, back behind the wall, breathes. His hands are not shaking. The G-43 feels good, solid, fast. For the first time in months, Hartmann feels like he is on equal footing. He has a rifle that can match the enemy's firepower. He thinks, why did it take so long? Why didn't we have this rifle 2 years ago? 3 years ago? He knows the answer. Because the High Command believed the Kar 98K was good enough, because semi-automatic rifles were seen as unnecessary, as a luxury, as something only the Americans with their endless industrial capacity could afford to mass produce, because Germany had other priorities: tanks, aircraft, rockets. Hartmann fires 3 more rounds, suppressing a Canadian position. Then he hears the metallic clatter of the MG-42 to his right. His machine gunner is laying down a long burst. Good. That will keep the Canadians' heads down. He signals to his squad, fall back. We hold the next street. They move, one by one, covering each other. Hartmann fires the last rounds in his magazine, drops the empty mag, inserts a fresh one. The reload is fast, faster than working a bolt 5 times. They make it to the next defensive position. Hartmann is breathing hard now, not from fear, but from exertion, and from a strange, bitter realization. The Gewehr 43 is a good rifle, maybe even a great rifle, but there are not enough of them. His squad has one. The Americans, the Canadians, they all have semi-automatic rifles, all of them. That is the difference. That is why Germany is losing. If you find this story engaging, please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. It helps us continue producing in-depth content like this. The question German engineers kept asking was not whether the M1 Garand was superior. That was obvious. The question was why. What specifically made it so effective? And could Germany replicate it with the resources available? In December 1943, Kummersdorf conducted a comprehensive comparative analysis. M1 Garand versus Kar 98K versus Gewehr 43. The test parameters were simple. Practical combat scenarios. Time to fire, 50 rounds. Accuracy, under rapid fire. Reliability, under field conditions. Weight and portability. Ease of maintenance. 3 soldiers participated, each with equivalent training, each firing all 3 rifles in rotation to eliminate individual shooter bias. The results were documented in excruciating detail. Test 1. Time to fire 50 rounds at targets 100 meters distant. M1 Garand, 3 minutes 42 seconds. Average. Gewehr 43, 4 minutes 8 seconds. Kar 98K, 11 minutes 15 seconds. Average. Test 2. Accuracy under rapid fire. 10 shots, 100 meters, as fast as possible. M1 Garand, 8 hits out of 10. Gewehr 43, 7 hits out of 10. Kar 98K, 9 hits out of 10. But time to complete was 2.5 times longer. Test 3. Reliability. 500 rounds, fired through each rifle without cleaning. M1 Garand, 0 malfunctions. Gewehr 43, 3 malfunctions requiring stoppage drills. Car 98K, 0 malfunctions. Test 4. Weight comparison. M1 Garand, 4.31 kilograms unloaded. Gewehr 43, 4.4 kilograms unloaded. Car 98K, 3.9 kilograms unloaded. The lightest. Test 5. Ease of field stripping and maintenance. M1 Garand could be field stripped in 45 seconds without tools. Gewehr 43 required 1 minute 20 seconds and a screwdriver for certain components. Car 98K could be field stripped in 30 seconds without tools. Friedrich Müller compiled the data into a comprehensive report. His conclusion was stark and unambiguous. The M1 Garand represents the optimal balance between firepower, reliability, and combat effectiveness for general infantry issue. The Gewehr 43 is competitive, but slightly less reliable and more complex to manufacture. The Car 98K, while highly accurate and reliable, is fundamentally inadequate for modern infantry combat due to its slow rate of fire. He added a final note. Captured American soldiers report that the M1 Garand has been in mass production since 1936. Germany began development of equivalent weapons only in 1941. We are 5 years behind. The report was sent to Berlin in January 1944. By that time, the strategic situation had deteriorated further. The Soviets were advancing in the east, the Allies were preparing for the invasion of France, and German industrial production was increasingly disrupted by Allied bombing. The response from Berlin was bureaucratic and predictable. Recommendation noted. Continue Gewehr 43 production at current capacity. Prioritize resources for tank and aircraft production. No additional allocation for small arms development. In other words, nothing would change. March 1944, Anzio Beachhead, Italy. Private First Class Robert Mitchell, 3rd Infantry Division, is crouched in a muddy foxhole, his M1 Garand resting across his knees. It is 3 in the morning. The sky's black. Artillery rumbles in the distance. Someone said the Germans are going to counterattack at dawn. Mitchell does not know if that is true, but he makes sure his rifle is ready. 8 rounds in the internal magazine. 6 more en-bloc clips in his ammunition pouches. 56 rounds total. He checks the action. Smooth. Reliable. He has fired this rifle hundreds of times in training, dozens of times in combat. It has never failed him. Around him, his squad is scattered in foxholes and shallow trenches. Everyone has a Garand, except the squad automatic rifleman, with his bar, and the sergeant with a Thompson submachine gun. That is the standard American infantry squad. 8 Garands, 1 bar, 1 Thompson. Massive firepower. Mitchell thinks about that. For a moment, he thinks about the German soldiers on the other side of no man's land. What rifles do they have? He has seen dead Germans. Most of them were carrying bolt-action Mausers. Beautiful rifles, actually. Well made. Accurate. But slow. He wonders if the Germans realize how badly outgunned they are. Dawn comes grey and cold. At 05:30, the German artillery opens up. Shells scream overhead, exploding behind the American lines. Mitchell presses himself flat in his foxhole, hands over his helmet. The barrage lasts 10 minutes. When it stops, the silence is worse than the noise. Then, through the smoke and morning mist, Mitchell sees them. German infantry, coming across the open ground, maybe 100 meters away. Moving fast, he raises his Garand, clicks off the safety, fires. The German at the front drops. Mitchell shifts aim, fires again. Another German goes down. He keeps firing, 8 rounds, fast as he can pull the trigger. The empty clip ejects with that distinctive ping. He grabs a fresh clip, slams it into the rifle, keeps shooting. Around him, the rest of his squad is doing the same. The noise is deafening. Crack, 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 crack. Not the slow, measured fire of bolt-action rifles, but a continuous roar. Suppressive fire. Overwhelming fire. The Germans are firing back, but their fire is slower. Deliberate. Aimed. Mitchell can hear the difference. The sharp crack of a Mauser. Then silence. Then another crack. They are working their bolts. They are taking time to aim. His squad is just pouring fire downrange, volume over precision, and it is working. The German attack falters, men drop, others go to ground. The momentum is broken. Mitchell fires another 8 rounds, reloads, fires 8 more. His shoulder is starting to hurt from the recoil. His ears are ringing, but his rifle is still working, still cycling, still putting bullets downrange. After 20 minutes, the German attack collapses. The survivors pull back, dragging their wounded. Mitchell counts the bodies in the field. 15, maybe 20. He looks down at his Garand. The barrel is hot. The metal smells like burnt powder, but the rifle is fine, ready to go again if needed. He thinks, thank God for this rifle. Thank God we do not have to work a bolt. The German soldier's perspective. 1944. By mid-1944, German soldiers on the Western Front understood the reality. They were outgunned, not just by tanks or artillery or airplanes, by rifles. In June 1944, shortly after D-Day, Wehrmacht intelligence conducted interviews with captured German soldiers. One report, dated July 5, 1944, included testimony from Gefreiter Otto Brenner, 352nd Infantry Division, captured near Carrington. The interviewer asked, "What surprised you most about American infantry tactics?" Brenner answered, "The speed of their rifle fire. We were told Americans were not good soldiers, that they relied on equipment instead of training. But when we fought them, they shot so fast. It was like fighting machine guns. Every American rifleman had a semi-automatic rifle. We had bolt-action Mausers. We could not match their rate of fire." Another report from August 1944 included testimony from Obergefreiter Hans Weber, 17th SS Panzergrenadier Division, captured near Falaise. Weber was more blunt. "The Americans do not have better soldiers. They have better rifles. Simple as that. In a firefight, they shoot 3 times as fast as we do. That is the difference between winning and losing." A third report from September 1944 quoted an unnamed lieutenant from the 9th Panzer Division. He said, "I commanded a platoon of 40 men. We engaged an American platoon of similar size near Nancy. Within 10 minutes, we had lost 15 men. The Americans lost 3. Not because they were better shots, because they could shoot faster. We were forced to withdraw." These reports were compiled and sent to OKW, Oberkommando der Wehrmacht, the High Command. The conclusion was unavoidable. German infantry, regardless of training or motivation, were at a structural disadvantage when facing American forces armed with M1 Garands. But by late 1944, it was far too late to do anything about it. The production bottleneck. Why could Germany not simply switch to mass production of the WWII 43? The answer is complex, but ultimately comes down to industrial capacity and priorities. In 1944, Germany was producing approximately 25,000 rifles per month across all types. That included Kar 98K, WWII 43, and captured weapons being refurbished. Of that total, only about 3,000 were WWII 43 rifles, roughly 12%. The United States, by comparison, was producing approximately 120,000 M1 Garands per month in 1944. 4 times Germany's total rifle production, 40 times Germany's semi-automatic rifle production. Why the disparity? First, manufacturing complexity. The M1 Garand required approximately 100 machining operations to produce. The WWII 43 required approximately 130. More operations meant more time, more skilled labor, more tooling. Second, material costs. The G43 used stamped steel components to save weight, but those components still required precision machining. For critical parts, like the bolt and receiver, steel was in increasingly short supply in Germany by 1944. Third, factory capacity. American arms manufacturers, Springfield Armory, Winchester, Harrington and Richardson, International Harvester, had been producing M1 Garands since 1936. Their production lines were mature, optimized, efficient. German factories were still working out manufacturing kinks on the G43, even as Allied bombs were falling on them. Fourth, strategic bombing. Between January and December 1944, Allied air forces flew over 1.4 million bomber sorties against German industrial targets. Arms factories were priority targets. Production was constantly disrupted. Factories were damaged. Supply chains were broken. Workers were killed or diverted to repairing bomb damage. Fifth, competing priorities. Germany was fighting a multi-front war. Resources had to be allocated. Tanks were critical for mobile defense. Aircraft were critical for air defense. Submarines were critical for interdicting Allied shipping. Small arms, rifles, were important but not decisive, or so the thinking went. The result, Germany never achieved the production scale necessary to equip its entire infantry force with semi-automatic rifles. Most German soldiers fought the entire war with Kar 98K rifles, good rifles, reliable rifles, but fundamentally inadequate against an enemy armed with M1 Garands, January 1945 near Bastogne, Belgium. The Battle of the Bulge is ending. German forces are retreating. Obergefreiter Ludwig Kessler, 12th SS Panzer Division, is part of a rearguard action covering the withdrawal. His squad is down to 6 men. 3 have Kar 98K rifles. 2 have MP 40 submachine guns. Kessler himself has a Gewehr 43. One of the lucky ones. They are positioned in a dense pine forest. Snow is falling. The temperature is 20 degrees below freezing. Kessler's fingers are numb. He can barely feel the trigger. American infantry is advancing through the trees. Kessler can hear them before he sees them. The crunch of boots on snow, the low voices speaking English. He raises the G-43, aims through the crude iron sights. Waits. The Americans emerge from the tree line. 50 meters. Close range. Kessler fires. The American at the front drops. He shifts aim. Fires again. Another hit. The Americans scatter, taking cover behind trees, and then they return fire. The sound is overwhelming. Not individual shots, but a continuous hammering. Every American is firing as fast as he can pull the trigger. Kessler ducks behind a thick tree trunk. Bark explodes above his head. Splinters fly. He leans out, fires 3 quick shots, ducks back. His squad is firing too, but it is not enough. The volume of fire coming from the Americans is simply too great. One of Kessler's men, the soldier with a Kar 98K, tries to fire. He works the bolt, aims. An American bullet catches him in the chest. He falls back into the snow. The soldier next to him panics, jumps up to help. Another burst of fire. He goes down too. Kessler shouts, "Fall back! Fall back!" The survivors retreat, moving from tree to tree. Kessler provides covering fire with his G-43. 10 rounds as fast as he can shoot them. Reload. 10 more. The Americans are not following aggressively. They are content to let the Germans withdraw. Smart tactics. Why risk casualties when you have the firepower advantage? Kessler and his remaining men make it back to the German lines. 4 out of 6, 2 dead. Not terrible odds, considering. But Kessler knows the truth. If his entire squad had been armed with semi-automatic rifles like his G-43, they might have held that position. They might have inflicted more casualties. They might have delayed the Americans longer. Instead, they were outgunned. Again, the tactical implications. The firepower advantage of the M1 Garand was not just a matter of individual rifle performance. It changed infantry tactics at the squad and platoon level. American doctrine emphasized fire and movement. One element of the squad would lay down suppressive fire while another element moved forward. The M1 Garand made this doctrine devastatingly effective. With bolt-action rifles, suppressive fire requires either machine guns or very large numbers of riflemen. But with semi-automatic rifles, every soldier in the squad can contribute meaningful suppressive fire. An 8-man American rifle squad, all armed with Garands, could put out 320 to 400 rounds per minute, sustained. That is equivalent to 2 or 3 light machine guns. By comparison, an 8-man German rifle squad, armed with Kar 98K rifles, could put out approximately 120 rounds per minute, less than half, and that assumes all 8 men are firing continuously, which is tactically unwise and practically impossible. The German solution was to center squad tactics around the machine gun, specifically the MG-42. The squad supported the machine gun. The machine gun provided the suppressive fire, the rifleman protected the machine gun and picked off individual targets. This doctrine worked, but it had a fundamental weakness. If the machine gun was knocked out, the squad lost its primary source of firepower. An American squad, by contrast, did not rely on a single weapon. Every rifleman was a source of firepower. The squad was more resilient, more flexible, more capable of sustaining fire even after taking casualties. This difference manifested in combat outcomes. Statistical analysis conducted by the U.S. Army Historical Division after the war found that in small unit engagements, platoon-sized or smaller, American forces consistently achieved favorable casualty ratios against German forces. The ratio varied depending on terrain, situation, and troop quality. But on average, Americans inflicted roughly 1.4 casualties for every casualty they suffered. 1.4 to 1. Not a huge advantage, but significant and consistent. When analysts tried to isolate the factors contributing to this advantage, they found that firepower superiority, specifically the M1 Garand's rate of fire, was a major component, not the only factor. American artillery was excellent. American logistics were superior. American air support was dominant. But at the level of individual rifle squads, in close-range firefights where artillery and air support were not factors, the M1 Garand made the difference. The psychological factor. There is another dimension to this story. The psychological impact of being outgunned. When a soldier fires his rifle and has to work a bolt, there is a moment of vulnerability, a moment when he's not shooting, a moment when he is focused on the mechanical task of ejecting the spent cartridge and chambering a new round. During that moment, the enemy can fire, can move, can gain the initiative. That moment lasts only a second or two, but in combat, a second can be an eternity. With a semi-automatic rifle, that moment does not exist. The soldier pulls the trigger. The rifle cycles automatically. He can pull the trigger again immediately. His focus never leaves the target. His firing position never changes. He maintains continuous control. This creates a psychological asymmetry. The soldier with a semi-automatic rifle feels in control. He is putting rounds downrange. He is suppressing the enemy. He is seizing the initiative. The soldier with the bolt-action rifle feels reactive. He shoots, then he must work the bolt. He is not in continuous control. He is constantly cycling between shooting and not shooting. This asymmetry affects decision-making in combat. Soldiers with semi-automatic rifles are more likely to engage targets aggressively. Soldiers with bolt-action rifles are more likely to be cautious, to wait for clear shots, to conserve ammunition. The aggregate effect: American infantry tended to be more aggressive in small unit actions. German infantry tended to be more defensive, not because of training or doctrine or national character, because of the rifles in their hands. April 1945. Near the Elbe River. The war is almost over. Feldwebel Hermann Fischer, 326th Volksgrenadier Division, is sitting in a cellar, listening to American artillery pound the town above. His division is down to battalion strength. Most of his men are boys, 16, 17 years old, or old men, 40, 45, pulled from rear area jobs. They have almost no training. They have almost no ammunition. And they have bolt-action, Kar 98K rifles. A few have Gewehr 43 rifles, but not many. Fischer himself has a Kar 98K. He has been fighting since 1939. Poland, France, Russia, now Germany itself. He has seen it all. He thinks about the rifles, about how many times he has worked that bolt, thousands of times, tens of thousands. How many shots has he fired in 6 years of war? He does not know. Too many to count. And now, at the end, he is still working a bolt. He thinks about the Americans. Every single one of them has a semi-automatic rifle. Every single one. That is the difference. That is why Germany lost. Not because German soldiers were not brave. They were. not because German soldiers were not well trained. They were, at least in the beginning, but because the Americans had better tools, better rifles, better tanks, better planes, better logistics, better everything. The artillery stops. Fisher hears boots on the rubble above. American voices. He looks at his rifle. He thinks about fighting. But what is the point? He sets the Kar 98K down, raises his hands, and walks up the cellar stairs into the daylight. The war is over. The final accounting. When the war ended in May 1945, the numbers told a stark story. United States total M1 Garand production, approximately 5.4 million rifles. Germany total semi-automatic rifle production, Gewehr 41 and Gewehr 43, combined, approximately 548,000 rifles. Ratio 10-1. If you include only the Gewehr 43, which was the only truly effective design, the ratio becomes even worse. 402,713 G43 rifles. Ratio 13-1. For every German soldier armed with a semi-automatic rifle, there were 13 Americans armed with M1 Garands. The impact of this disparity is difficult to quantify precisely. Combat is chaotic. Many factors contribute to victory or defeat, but post-war analysis by both American and German military historians consistently identified infantry firepower as a significant factor in American tactical success. General der Panzertruppe Hasso von Manteuffel, commander of the 5th Panzer Army during the Battle of the Bulge, wrote in his memoirs, "The American infantry rifle, the M1 Garand, gave their soldiers a considerable advantage in close combat. Our men, armed primarily with Kar 98K bolt-action rifles, could not match the rate of fire in dense terrain, forests, towns. This firepower disparity was decisive." Oberst Hans von Luck, commander of the 125th Panzer Grenadier Regiment, wrote, "I often wondered what the outcome would have been if our infantry had been equipped with semi-automatic rifles from the beginning. Perhaps the same, perhaps not. But I know this, the American rifle made their infantry more effective, more aggressive, more dangerous. Friedrich Müller, the weapons engineer who tested the captured M1 Garand at Kummersdorf in November 1943, survived the war. He was captured by Soviet forces in May 1945, spent 3 years in a prison camp, and was released in 1948. He returned to Germany and worked as an engineer for a civilian firearms manufacturer. In 1968, he was interviewed for a documentary about German weapons development during World War II. The interviewer asked him, "Looking back, what was the biggest mistake Germany made in small arms development?" Müller thought for a long moment. Then he said, "We were arrogant. We believed the Kar 98K was sufficient. We believed that discipline and training could compensate for technological disadvantage. We were wrong. The Americans understood something we did not, that in modern war, firepower matters more than precision. That 10 shots that miss are more valuable than 5 shots that hit if they suppress the enemy and allow your forces to maneuver. We learned that lesson too late." The interviewer pressed, "Could Germany have won if it had equipped its infantry with semi-automatic rifles earlier?" Müller shook his head. "No, Germany could not have won. The industrial disparity was too great. The strategic situation was too unfavorable. But we might have fought more effectively. We might have inflicted higher casualties. We might have prolonged the war. Whether that would have been better or worse, I do not know." He paused. "But I know this. Every German soldier who died because he could not fire fast enough, every soldier who was overrun because his bolt-action rifle was too slow, died because we, the engineers and the generals and the politicians, failed to give him the tools he needed. That is our burden to carry." The legacy. The M1 Garand did not win World War II by itself. Wars are not won by rifles alone. They are won by logistics, strategy, industrial capacity, leadership, and the courage of soldiers. But the M1 Garand gave American soldiers an edge, a tangible, measurable edge, the ability to fire 3 times as fast as the enemy, the ability to suppress, to maneuver, to seize the initiative. After the war, the M1 Garand remained in service with the United States Army through the Korean War and into the early years of the Vietnam War. It was finally replaced by the M14 in 1957, a selective fire rifle derived from the Garand design. But the lesson of the M1 Garand was not forgotten. Semi-automatic and automatic rifles became the standard for all modern armies. The age of the bolt-action service rifle was over. Germany, divided after the war, learned the lesson well. The East German National Volksarmee adopted the Soviet AK-47. The West German Bundeswehr adopted the G3, a selective fire battle rifle. Both armies understood firepower wins firefights. Today, the M1 Garand is remembered as one of the most important infantry rifles in history, not because it was perfect. It was heavy. The on-block clip system was clunky. The distinctive ping when the clip ejected could theoretically alert the enemy, though in practice, the noise of battle made this irrelevant. But because it was the first semi-automatic rifle issued as a standard weapon to an entire army, the first rifle to prove that rate of fire could be more important than precision, the first rifle to change the way infantry fights. November 1943, Friedrich Müller stands at the firing range at Kummersdorf, holding an M1 Garand. He has just finished firing 50 rounds. His report will be filed. His recommendations will be ignored. He knows this, but he also knows something else. He has just held the future in his hands. A rifle that does not require working a bolt. A rifle that fires as fast as the soldier can pull the trigger. A rifle that gives ordinary infantrymen the firepower of a machine gun. He sets the Garand down on the table. He looks at the Kar-98K beside it, a beautiful rifle, reliable, accurate, a masterpiece of German engineering. But obsolete. Obsolete the moment John Garand perfected his design in 1936. Obsolete the moment American soldiers landed in North Africa with Garands in their hands. Obsolete, but still being issued to German soldiers by the millions. Müller walks back to his office. He sits down at his desk. He lights a cigarette. And he thinks about the young men, German and American, who are fighting at this very moment. He thinks about the Germans, with their Kar-98K rifles, working their bolts as fast as they can. He thinks about the Americans with their M1 Garands, firing 3 times as fast. He thinks about which ones will survive. And he knows the ones with the better rifles will live. The ones with the worst rifles will die. Not always. Not in every case. But on average, over thousands of firefights, tens of thousands, the advantage will compound. And that advantage, multiplied across millions of soldiers, will decide the war. Thank you for watching. For more detailed historical breakdowns, check out the other videos on your screen now, and don't forget to subscribe.